Have you ever wondered if greed and investing could cost you your spiritual peace and future? The parable of the rich fool in Luke 12, verse 16 to 21, warns that material wealth can come and go, but eternal values are what you truly possess. Let's explore how to combine faith and wise investing to not only build wealth, but also bring glory to God. Are you ready? To make your money work for a higher purpose. Welcome to Faith 7 Business, where stories ignite faith and strategy. Every word here is crafted to inspire, transform minds, and drive action. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. We are committed to praying for your business to grow and prosper. Explore today's lessons to discover how you can become a wise investor aligned with God's purpose. Part 1. Understanding the parable of the rich fool in Luke 12, verse 16 to 21. The parable in Luke 12, verse 16 to 21 narrates the story of a rich man who experiences an abundant harvest. Upon realizing the vast amount of wealth he has gained, he is uncertain about how to manage his surplus. After contemplating his options, he decides to build larger barns to store his excess goods, promising himself that he will relax, eat, drink, and be merry, living a life of ease and enjoyment. However, in a moment of suddenness, God speaks, "You fool, this very night your soul will be required of you. Then who will own what you have accumulated?" Luke 12, verse 20. Jesus concludes, "This is how it will be with anyone who stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God." Luke 12, verse 21. This parable is not merely a tale of material loss, but carries a profound message about the fragility of life and the dangers of placing too much trust in earthly possessions. From a Protestant theological perspective, we can draw several important insights. Number 1, the fragility of life. The parable of the rich fool illustrates that human life is exceedingly fragile and short-lived. No matter how much wealth we accumulate or how many barns we build, all of it can be lost in the blink of an eye. The question God asks the rich man, "Who will own what you have accumulated?" is not only a reflection of the futility of amassing material wealth, but also a reminder that no one can control their future. Life and death are beyond human control. As Jesus warns, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions, because all things are temporary and cannot forever belong to us. In today's business world, investors and entrepreneurs are also subject to the fragility of life. No matter how thoroughly you prepare, external factors like market fluctuations, economic crises, or unforeseen personal challenges can quickly deplete your assets. Therefore, those in the investment field must recognize that financial stability cannot solely depend on accumulating wealth, but must be built on a firm foundation of spiritual and ethical values. Jim Rohn once said, "Life is very short, but sadly, many people realize that only after they have spent all their time on the unimportant." We plan for 10 years, but often fail to live fully for even 10 days. Do not live as though you have endless time, for in the end, time will ask you, "What did you use me for?" Number 2, greed and self-centeredness. Another critical point this parable emphasizes is the danger of greed and the focus on personal gain above all else. The rich man in the parable does not merely accumulate wealth, he takes proactive steps to secure his future by building larger barns. However, he only thinks of relaxing and enjoying his wealth without considering the needs of others or the deeper meaning of life. Jesus does not simply criticize the accumulation of wealth. He reminds us that accumulating wealth without a purpose beyond self-interest, such as serving God and the community, is an act of folly.
In the context of modern business, greed can easily become the driving force behind financial decisions. Many entrepreneurs and investors seek profits without considering the impact of their choices on society or their community. When we focus solely on personal gain, neglecting spiritual and ethical values, we fall into the trap of greed and irresponsibility. Wealth is not the ultimate goal. It is a tool to create positive change in society and build a meaningful life. As John Maxwell wrote, "The fragility of life is why leadership cannot be delayed, because every day is an opportunity to make an eternal impact." God does not measure your life by its length, but by what you leave behind in the hearts of others when time has passed. 3. A warning about the meaninglessness of wealth without purpose. Jesus points out that accumulating wealth for oneself without being rich toward God is meaningless. God does not encourage us to live a life of poverty, but He warns us that everything we possess is a gift from Him, and we must use it wisely and responsibly. Wealth, if not used correctly, will not bring lasting happiness. Rather, it will lead to a void in the soul. In practice, the development of modern economies and industries has created a fierce competitive environment where many people seek profit without considering the long-term consequences of their business decisions. If investors and entrepreneurs do not set their goals within an ethical framework, they may achieve temporary success, but will feel spiritually impoverished. They will never experience the true fulfillment and joy that life has to offer. The danger of greed. The rich fool only thinks about enjoying his wealth for himself, showing no concern for God or others. The rich man in Jesus' parable is a prime example of greed and self-satisfaction. When faced with a bountiful harvest, instead of thinking about how to use his wealth responsibly, he only focuses on accumulating more riches for personal enjoyment. He takes pride in the large barns he has built and plans to relax, eat, drink, and be merry without a care in the world. This is not just an expression of greed, but also a lack of responsibility towards higher values, such as his relationship with God and service to others. Jesus emphasizes that greed is not only a dangerous temptation, but also leads to poor life decisions. The rich man never considers the fragility of life, nor does he think about how to use his wealth to help others or serve a higher purpose. His selfishness and lack of concern for those around him led to a major mistake, failing to prepare for the unpredictable turns life might take. True wealth in God, investing in eternal values. Jesus doesn't condemn wealth, but He condemns the way we face and use it. He calls us not only to accumulate material wealth, but to invest in eternal values, such as our relationship with God and service to others. True wealth in God is not just material wealth, but a wealth of the soul, a sense of contentment and joy that comes from living according to His principles, loving others, and contributing to the work of God's kingdom.
This parable teaches us that wealth is not the ultimate goal, but rather a tool to serve a higher purpose. If we fail to use our wealth to serve God and our community, it will only bring emptiness and regret. Investing in eternal values, such as our relationship with God, compassion, and service, will bring true wealth into our lives. In the business context, this can be understood as making investment decisions that not only seek profit, but also reflect ethical responsibility and contributions to the community. A warning for investors: greed can lead to dangerous financial decisions. The rich man made a grave mistake by only thinking of himself and not preparing for the unexpected challenges life might bring. He did not consider the possibility of losing all that he had accumulated in the blink of an eye. Accumulating wealth without a long-term purpose or without creating true value is a flawed strategy, not only in spiritual life, but also in investment. In the modern business environment, greed can also lead to dangerous financial decisions. Greed can cause investors to chase tempting investment opportunities without fully evaluating the risks involved.
or invest in unsustainable products simply for short-term profit. The lack of consideration and the pursuit of immediate financial gain can lead to severe financial failures. Furthermore, when we focus only on accumulating and earning for ourselves, we may overlook our responsibilities toward the community and society, leading to decisions that harm not only ourselves but those around us. Whether in investment or life, we must remember that greed always leads us away from the right path. Financial decisions should be built on a foundation of wisdom, ethics, and responsibility, rather than greed and selfishness. This approach not only helps protect our assets, but also allows us to create lasting value, contributing to the long-term prosperity of society as a whole. Part 2. Greed in investment. Greed, in the context of investment, refers to an excessive desire to accumulate wealth, often leading to hasty and unethical decisions. While greed can stem from a desire for quick profits, if unchecked, it can result in severe consequences for both the financial and ethical standing of the investor. 1. Manifestations of greed in investment. Greed in investment can manifest in various forms, including chasing high returns. Investors are often lured by promises of rapid and attractive profits, but fail to evaluate the associated risks. When an investment opportunity promises extraordinary returns, it can cause investors to overlook the need for thorough risk assessment and the sustainability of the project. This can lead to blind investment decisions based solely on the desire for immediate returns without fully considering the long-term consequences. 2. Ignoring ethics. Greed may lead some investors to abandon basic ethical standards in their pursuit of profit maximization. This can result in investing in companies or projects that harm the community, the environment, or engage in illegal activities such as gambling, unsustainable resource extraction, or industries that negatively impact society. Investors may be solely concerned with short-term profits without reflecting on the long-term repercussions of such decisions.
Emotional decisions. Emotional investing, driven by the fear of missing out, FOMO, or herd mentality, is a clear manifestation of greed. Rather than analyzing data and factual information, investors may be swayed by others or misleading information, leading to impulsive and ill-informed investment decisions. Consequences of greed in investment. These hasty and unethical behaviors can lead to serious repercussions, affecting not only the investor's finances, but also their reputation, integrity, and spiritual well-being. Financial losses. One of the most severe consequences of greed in investment is financial loss. When investors become caught up in high-risk investment opportunities without properly assessing the risks, investments may fail, leading to significant losses. Impulsive decisions, driven by the allure of short-term gains without thorough analysis, can wipe out everything an investor has accumulated. Legal consequences. Investing in projects or companies that violate ethical or legal standards can lead to serious legal repercussions. Engaging in illegal activities, such as investing in banned industries or those harmful to the environment, may result in lawsuits, fines, or even imprisonment. Investors face not only financial loss, but also legal punishment, further complicating their situation. Damage to reputation. Greed and unethical investment decisions can tarnish the investor's reputation. Losing trust from clients, partners, and the community is one of the most difficult consequences to recover from. Reputation is a valuable asset in business, and once damaged, it is challenging to rebuild. Focusing solely on profit while ignoring ethical considerations will cause the investor to lose trust and support from those around them. Spiritual decline. Ultimately, greed in investment can lead to deep spiritual decline. When investors focus exclusively on profit-making and neglect ethical and spiritual values, they become disconnected from Christian principles. The incessant desire for material wealth can lead them to lose inner peace and stray from important Christian values, such as humility, sharing, and serving others. As a result, wealth becomes meaningless, and they will feel empty and unhappy, no matter how much material wealth they accumulate. In conclusion, greed in investment can result in devastating consequences, not only affecting the investor's financial health, but also their reputation and spiritual well-being. Investors must remember that true success is not measured by the amount of wealth they accumulate, but by how they manage their resources responsibly, ethically, and in accordance with values that honor God and serve the broader community. Wealth that is accumulated without purpose or ethical considerations will ultimately lead to emptiness and regret. Biblical warnings. The Bible teaches that no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. Matthew 6:24. Greed, when allowed to dominate our lives, makes us slaves to wealth, rather than living by the eternal values that God calls us to pursue. In 1 Timothy 6 verse 10, the Bible further emphasizes, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, and some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." Greed is not only a vice, but can also lead to failure in both investments and life. Maintaining patience, discernment, and integrity in all financial decisions helps protect us from unnecessary risks and losses. Greed in investment can lead us into wrong decisions, resulting in financial losses, legal repercussions, harm to reputation, and spiritual decline. Therefore, investors need to maintain careful consideration and ethical standards in all decisions, avoiding allowing the desire for profit to control their actions. True wealth does not come from accumulating material possessions, but from integrity, fairness, and investing in the eternal values of God. Part 3. Real-life examples of investment risks caused by greed. Throughout financial history, there are numerous examples that clearly illustrate the severe consequences greed in investment can cause. These events not only serve as lessons on financial risk, but also act as warnings about putting greed above careful consideration and ethical decision-making in investments. The dot-com bubble, 2000.
In the late 1990s and early 2000s, the internet boom created a strong investment frenzy in technology companies, particularly those that were internet-based but not yet profitable, with hopes of explosive future growth. Investors flocked to these companies, ignoring their financial effectiveness or sustainable business models. The excitement over new technology led to a surge in stock prices, despite the fact that many of these companies lacked the ability to generate profits or even had unclear business models. When the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, billions of dollars were lost. Many companies went bankrupt and thousands of investors lost their assets. This is a clear example of how greed led people to engage in risky investments without thoroughly evaluating the potential risks, resulting in a major financial crisis. The allure of quick profits and the temptation of new technology caused investors to ignore warning signs about the sustainability of the companies they were investing in. The 2008 financial crisis is another prominent example of the consequences of greed in investment. In the years leading up to the crisis, the U.S. housing market saw significant growth, with home prices continuously rising. Greed and the desire for large profits led banks and financial institutions to offer high-risk loans to individuals who could not afford to repay them, subprime mortgages. These loans were then packaged into securities and sold to investors. Investors, caught up in the housing boom, failed to recognize the hidden risks within these loans and eagerly pursued profits. When home prices began to decline and foreclosure rates increased, the securities tied to these loans
rapidly lost value, leading to the collapse of major financial institutions like Lehman Brothers. Millions lost their jobs, and thousands of investors lost everything they had. This financial crisis was not only a lesson on ignorance and greed, but also a powerful reminder that when greed influences investment decisions, the consequences can be a global economic downturn. These examples highlight the destructive potential of greed in the world of investment. Greed leads to poor financial decisions, legal consequences, and a loss of integrity. Whether it is chasing high returns without evaluating risk, neglecting ethical standards in investing, or making impulsive decisions based on emotional impulses, greed can result in devastating financial losses and long-term repercussions. The lessons from both the Bible and these historical events are clear. Wealth and success are not found in greed and selfishness, but in making responsible, ethical, and thoughtful decisions that honor God and serve the common good. Ultimately, the pursuit of eternal values such as integrity, fairness, and love for others leads to true wealth, both spiritually and financially. The Ponzi scheme of Bernie Madoff, one of the most notorious financial scandals in modern history, is a Ponzi scheme orchestrated by Bernie Madoff, a legendary investor known for promising steady and high returns to investors. Madoff defrauded thousands of investors, guaranteeing consistent profits even during times when the stock market was in decline. The investors, lured by promises of high returns, failed to realize they were participating in a Ponzi scheme, where the money from new investors was used to pay returns to older investors. Greed led investors to overlook warning signs and the lack of transparency in Madoff's transactions. When his Ponzi scheme was exposed in 2008, billions of dollars were lost, and many investors lost everything they had. This is a clear example of how greed and the desire for quick profits can cause individuals to overlook signs of fraud and lead to significant financial losses. The lessons from these examples illustrate that greed in investment not only leads to financial losses, but can also have severe consequences for the global economy, personal reputation, and public trust in financial markets. Investors in these events became caught up in the race for profit, ignoring risk factors, failing to assess the sustainability of investment opportunities, and often being driven by herd mentality and the fear of missing out on opportunities. When greed takes control, investors are more likely to make hasty, unthoughtful decisions that result in costly mistakes. Lack of caution and neglect of ethical principles in investing can destroy wealth and erode the trust in the financial system. This emphasizes the importance of maintaining ethical standards and not allowing the craving for profit to dictate financial decisions.
Part 4. Wise investment strategies. To avoid the traps of greed and make smart investment decisions, Christian entrepreneurs can adopt sustainable, ethical investment strategies. These strategies not only help protect assets, but also reflect spiritual and ethical values in business. First, thorough research. Before making an investment decision, the most important step is conducting thorough research. This involves analyzing financial reports, evaluating the potential growth of the business, and considering possible risks. Greed often drives investors to pursue enticing opportunities without fully understanding the associated risks. To avoid this, it's crucial to carefully examine information about the company, industry, and market. Christian investors should seek opportunities that, upon thorough analysis, have a solid and sustainable foundation. In addition, entrepreneurs should pay attention to non-financial factors, such as the quality of leadership and the company's commitment to business ethics and social responsibility. Gaining comprehensive information and not solely focusing on short-term profits will enable investors to make wiser decisions. 2. Diversify your portfolio. A key strategy to minimize risk in investments is diversification. Rather than focusing on a single asset type,
investors should allocate capital across different assets, such as stocks, bonds, real estate, and index funds. This helps to reduce risk if one particular asset class encounters difficulties or declines. For example, in the US, the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, VTI, is an excellent choice for those wanting to invest in a diversified index fund that covers various sectors and industries. This fund not only helps diversify investments, but also mitigates risk by spreading assets across a broad spectrum. Diversification also helps investors protect themselves against unexpected market fluctuations and uncertainties. 3. Focus on long-term planning. A wise investment strategy is to focus on sustainable growth rather than chasing short-term profits. Long-term investment planning helps investors maintain their goals and avoid getting caught up in the market's short-term fluctuations. Warren Buffett, the world-renowned investor, is a prime example of a long-term investment strategy. Through Berkshire Hathaway, he has made substantial investments in companies with enduring value, like Coca-Cola. By focusing on companies with solid foundations and long-term growth potential, rather than seeking quick but unsustainable profits, investors can build a robust and stable investment portfolio. The examples of the Ponzi scheme, the dot-com bubble, and the 2008 financial crisis show the catastrophic impact of greed in investment. Greed can cloud judgment, leading to rash decisions and the loss of wealth. Therefore, it is essential for investors to uphold ethical standards, conduct thorough research, and make informed decisions that reflect their values. By adopting strategies that emphasize caution, patience, diversification, and long-term planning, investors can protect their assets, avoid the dangers of greed, and make investments that are not only financially sound, but also ethically aligned with the values of integrity and stewardship. This approach will ensure that their investments contribute to a more stable financial future grounded in responsibility and trust. 4. Ethical investing. Investing is not just about making profits, it is also about reflecting ethical and spiritual values. Christian investors can choose funds or companies that adhere to ESG criteria. Investing in companies with a strong social responsibility, environmental protection initiatives, and ethical standards creates long-term value, not only financially, but also in serving the community and society at large.
For example, the iShares MSCI KLD 400 Social ETF in the United States is an index fund that invests in companies committed to strong ESG criteria. In Brazil, Natura, a famous cosmetics company, has committed to sustainable development and environmental protection. Investing in such companies not only generates profits, but also contributes to the sustainable development of society and environmental protection. To avoid the traps of greed and build a strong portfolio, Christian entrepreneurs must adopt wise investment strategies, including thorough research, portfolio diversification, long-term planning, and ethical investing. These strategies not only help protect assets, but also help investors live according to Christian values, serve the community, and make a positive impact on society. Sustainable and responsible investing is the best way to build lasting and meaningful wealth. The parable of the rich fool and the warning against greed. The parable of the rich fool in Luke chapter 12 verses 16 to 21 serves as a strong warning against greed and foolishly accumulating wealth without considering the fragility of life and spiritual priorities. In this story, the rich man, though having everything, fails to recognize that life is short and uncertain, and ultimately all his wealth will not follow him. Material wealth cannot protect him from the suddenness of death, and it certainly cannot protect his soul. Greed in investment not only leads to financial risks, such as significant losses, but can also result in legal issues and spiritual decline. When greed governs decisions, one is easily tempted to chase high-risk investment opportunities, forgetting the responsibility toward the community and ethical principles. This not only leads to material loss, but can also rob us of peace and our relationship with God. The key question for Christian entrepreneurs. So the crucial question every Christian entrepreneur needs to ask themselves is, what are you investing for? Do your investments reflect the values that God has set? Are you using your resources wisely, responsibly, and in service to God's higher purposes? Ask yourself, does your wealth truly serve the goals of God's kingdom? How can you use the resources God has entrusted to you to benefit the community, help the needy, and protect the environment? Do you truly believe that security and true happiness come from God, not from material wealth? Do not let greed dictate your decisions. Apply wise investment strategies such as thorough research, portfolio diversification, long-term planning, and ethical investing. Remember, the wealth you accumulate is not only valuable in this life, but should also bring glory to God and serve higher purposes. Building a portfolio with a higher purpose. Create a portfolio not only for profit, but to reflect your role as a faithful steward of what God has given you. The question is, are you willing to let God guide each financial decision not for personal gain, but for His glory? A Christian's financial life should reflect the belief that true security and joy come from God alone. Investing with a purpose beyond personal wealth, focusing on ethical principles, social responsibility, and long-term sustainable growth aligns with God's calling to be faithful stewards of His blessings. Thank you for journeying with Faith 7 Business. Your follow is more than a number. It's a symbol of faith, a desire for transformation, and a commitment to walking together toward lasting, purpose-driven impact. Stay with us, where storytelling, faith, and strategy come together to spark inspiration and real action. Don't miss the upcoming lessons, where you'll discover real-world strategies, transformational stories, and powerful leadership insights crafted just for purpose-driven entrepreneurs like you. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. We'd love to pray for your business to prosper and thrive with purpose. Faith 7 Business, always walking with you.